I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, let's address a reoccurring question I get on my YouTube channel here about buying in various areas of the Lower Mainland. It's kind of the running joke here. People are always asking, what about Surrey? Should I buy an investment unit out in Surrey? Is it going to give me better appreciation? What do you think of Surrey? Well, as you guys know, I don't do a whole lot of work out in areas like Surrey. However, I do have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath that I'm getting ready to list in Wally here next month. I just recently sold a 2-bed, 2-bath in Coquitlam on the listing side as well. Lately, I have been doing a fair bit of work out in Brentwood, as well as the Edmonds area in Burnaby, and there's some pretty good value out there. But let me just break it down here. People will say, you can do better out in areas that have got more potential than Vancouver. And, why pay $650 for a 1-bed when you can buy 2 of those out in the Fraser Valley? And, that would be the better investment. Well, it may or may not be. There's a lot of variables there that I'm going to go into here. The first thing I'll say, though, is let's break it down between principal residence buyer and investor, because they are complete polar opposites. The first thing, most people are buying a principal residence. That's their first step. That should be your first purchase. Only probably 20% less own an investment property, and that's way down the road, as I've often told people. Start with your principal residence, max out your TFSA and your RRSP, then maybe look at an investment unit. But as far as buying your principal residence goes, I've often said that put aside appreciation and what's going to give you the best potential on your principal residence. You should buy a principal residence first and foremost based on your lifestyle, where you feel most comfortable based on your lifestyle, and where you want to live. I would put that ahead of what you think is going to appreciate the best, because everything is going to appreciate, I can tell you, in the Lower Mainland. Some will probably do a little better than others, as I'm going to get to in a minute. But priority number one in buying your principal residence is you buy a home that meets your needs. Do you need a yard? Do you need 2 bathrooms or 3 bathrooms? How many bedrooms do you need? And what city do you want to live in? Now, the other thing, of course, though, is it boils down to affordability. So in other words, if someone is working downtown, is a lawyer, let's say, and has a law office, him and his wife both work downtown, then I would probably say if you can afford it, and that's the big caveat here, if you can afford it, then live downtown. That way you can walk to work, you can take advantage of all the spectacular amenities that living in downtown Vancouver has. At least that's for me. Not for everyone, though. Some people might think downtown Vancouver is way too busy and too crowded and too noisy. But if you enjoy the downtown Vancouver lifestyle and you've got the budget, then for sure, buy in downtown Vancouver if that's where you want to be and you can afford it. Some people, though, of course, they've got a budget of $700K and they need 2 bedrooms. Downtown Vancouver is going to be out of the question. But we could look at Richmond, we could look at Burnaby, New Westminster. That's what you have to base that on. Now, as far as an investment goes, it's kind of the same thing. If someone comes to me and says, "Oh, and I want to buy an investment unit," the first thing I'm going to ask is, are you pre-qualified? Yes. What is your budget? If they tell me their budget is $650, $700K, then that opens a lot of options. We could get you a good quality 1-bedroom, 1-bath with parking in downtown Vancouver in a relatively younger concrete high-rise. You can get into now junior 1-beds in the high 5s, low 6s, depending, some with, some without parking, depending on the age and your budget. A good, standard 1-bedroom, let's call it 550 square feet to 600 square feet, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $650 to $675 can get you into a good strata that I like to get my buyers into. That unit will rent for around $2,200. You're going to have something that people often overlook that I've talked about is the quality of the tenants in the downtown Vancouver rental pool. Most of them are going to be young tech workers and professionals earning, $80K a year and up. Probably not going to be much work to get a good quality tenant with a high beacon score and put a tenant in there and keep them. Now, if they went to me and said, "Oh, my budget is $475," then Vancouver is out, and probably even areas like Mount Pleasant, even Collingwood is probably going to be out. We're going to have to go out into areas like Burnaby or Richmond or New Westminster. There's still good tenant pools out there, and you will do quite well, I think, on the appreciation on those. Maybe not quite as well when you get out into the areas like Surrey or Langley or some of those other areas. I've often said here, the one downside to those, and you'll still do quite well, is that there's still a fair bit of buildable land still available out there. Developers are still pumping out supply in those areas. Whereas in Vancouver, downtown Vancouver, or let's call it Kitsilano or Mount Pleasant or Olympic Village or Fairview or Cambie, we are greatly, greatly limited on the supply coming online here. We just don't have a lot of developable land that's still able to develop on. There's some for sure. There's going to be lots of assemblies, land assemblies for detached homes along areas like Cambie and Nanaimo Street and those kind of areas, Oak Street, etc. But I can tell you that for downtown Vancouver and the surrounding areas, most of the stuff being built, especially in downtown, as I've often said, is going to be luxury condos only from this point on in downtown Vancouver. That's just the way it is. The land is too expensive. Developers are not going to be building anything that's considered affordable. So affordable meaning, let's call it under $1,200 a square foot, which sounds crazy, but under $1,200 a square foot is what would be considered kind of in the sweet spot, affordable. Everything downtown Vancouver now is going to be $1,700, $1,800 a square foot and up. So that's why I've often advocated here, try and get a piece of downtown Vancouver while the getting's good. If you're an investor and you've got a budget of $650 or $675, then my first choice would be, let's get you a good quality 1 bed, 1 bath, with or without parking. We can decide on that depending on what's available, because it's not a deal breaker not to have parking anymore downtown with the car share and Uber and everything else. I've done many blogs on that. But that would be my first choice. If your budget is only, let's call it $550 or $500, then we're going to have to go further out. I'll tell you, I've done a few sales here now in Brentwood. I just had one in the Edmonds area as well, and some stuff out in Metrotown. There's a lot of new development coming online in there, and some good value out there. You're looking for kind of a junior 1 bed. I had blogged about, I had that sale at $505,000 for a brand new high floor junior 1 bedroom with parking in a very nice building. Very nice finishings. I just had another one out in Edmonds that we picked up around in the mid fives. That is a full-size 1 bedroom, 660 square feet, 1 year old with parking, incredible finishings on it. It's a Cressy build, which is one of my favorite developers. So there's some good value out in some of those areas. But it all comes down to your budget. When you're buying a principal residence, again, budget is the big thing. But buy where you want to live. If you've got an unlimited budget, then buy where you want to live. If you work downtown and like the downtown lifestyle, then I would say buy downtown, because I think you'll probably get superior gains out there too. On that note, I had some guys saying, oh, there's better areas than Vancouver. You're going to do far better if you're going to be investing in real estate. Well, what areas are you talking about? I'd like to know. I'm curious myself. I'm waiting for him to get back to me on that. Don't just base it off price. Sure, you're paying $650 for a condo in Vancouver, and you can get a 1 bedroom out in, let's call it Langley, for probably $375. But don't let the purchase price skew where the results are going to go. Give you an example here. I'm getting ready to list a 2 bed, 2 bath in Wally in a 10-year-old concrete high-rise. It's a nice unit. My seller here is an investor. He bought it brand new 10 years ago, and I can tell you I was kind of shocked. We're going to be listing this thing, a little bit above, let's call it 15% above what he paid for it 10 years ago, and probably be open to offer. So when the smoke clears with the commissions and everything else, my guy's probably not going to be making a whole lot of money based on the comps and what's been selling in this building. Now, I can tell you if and that's one of the reasons why he's selling. He wants to move into some greener pastures like Vancouver. I can tell you that if you would have bought that 10 years ago, instead of buying out in Wally, bought in downtown Vancouver, you'd be sitting on some substantial capital gain here, at least up 50%. So again, I don't do a lot of work in these areas, but from what I can see, at least the last 10 years, not much has outperformed what you could buy or what the appreciation you could get in downtown Vancouver, Kitts, Fairview, Mount Pleasant, Olympic Village. That seems to have outperformed a lot of these outlying areas. I don't know how it's going to do going forward, because affordability is always a big thing too. Eventually, prices get up so that there's a flight out to these areas, which is what's been happening. But the other thing I tell people, again, don't discount a few things. When you're an investor, I like to tell people I like to buy within a 15 or 20 minute drive of where I live. I manage my own properties. People ask me about Chilliwack or the Okanagan. Well, those areas might be okay, but you're probably going to have to hire a property manager if you live in Vancouver. I like to be close to my properties. But the other thing that you don't want to overlook is that demographic of tenants. And I know for a fact that the demographic out in the Fraser Valley, where you're renting a one bedroom for $1,000, is much different than the demographic that you're renting for downtown, where you're paying 22 or 23. With me, I've kind of positioned myself into that higher end tenant. I've been able to. I didn't start that way. I started out in Richmond with old wood frame, but I've gradually moved my business into downtown Vancouver and, patronizing targeting those higher end professional renters. So you don't want to overlook that. That makes a big difference in holding your properties and managing them and how much workload you've got to keep those tenants. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.